Oh, goody.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another Marvel Snap video. So in this one, I had a pretty good conversation on stream with chat, talking about some of the bigger concerns and issues I have with Snap that are outside of the card acquisition stuff. Understandably so, card acquisition is the laser focus of the community. It's the biggest pain point. It's the thing Second Dinner's talked about. We're probably going to see some updates on that in the new year, and a lot of people are waiting on bated breath to see, hey, do they finally figure this out and make it better, and will everything be good? And only time will tell on that front. We'll have to wait and see. But I think because of the focus on card acquisition, there are some other issues or things with the game that are going a bit under the radar that people aren't really thinking about. And as someone who's been able to circumvent some of the acquisition woes compared to the average player by using this little life hack of spending more money than probably should on a children's card game, I feel like it has helped me see some of these things and focus on some of these things that aren't quite as focused on by the average player, who is more focused on card acquisition issues and improvement. So what if Second Dinner gets it right? They make things better. It's a lot better. Let's say they fix the card acquisition issues entirely. Will that solve all of the kind of negativity around Snap at the moment? And I don't think that alone will do it. I think it'll help massively. I think it'll be probably the best thing they can do. But in terms of like long-term sustainability, especially for like the more invested online community around the game, I think there are a few other issues that aren't really discussed as much just because card acquisition is understandably the biggest topic. So I wanted to talk about that a bit, and I had a really good back and forth on stream about it with chat. I thought it was a fun conversation, and rather than try to run it back and re-record all that stuff, I'm pretty happy with how it came out the first time, so I'm just going to cut to that now. And yeah, I hope it's something you enjoy, and I'd love to hear your perspective on it in the comments below. Let's dive into it. Did I film What's Wrong with Snap? I have not yet. Maybe we'll do that here shortly. Maybe I want to talk about it. The whole I really, really do think the one card a week model fucking blows. And I think not enough people appreciate that problem because they're focused on the acquisition, which makes sense, right? The acquisition is the main pain point a lot of people are feeling. But let's say in a hypothetical world where they fix the acquisition, let's say they do better than fix it. Let's say we live in a world where Ben Brode has had a come to Jesus moment. He saw the outcome of that fucking Christmas movie where he saw the ghost of Snapmas' future, and he was like, oh no, things are gonna go bad. I need to give every card away for free. Let's say we live in that world. That's not gonna happen, but let's say that was the world we lived in. If getting cards wasn't a problem at all, I think way more people would realize how fucking lame the one card a week is. I'm incredibly biased, and I'm not gonna hide that. I'm super biased against the system, but I think there's a good reason to be biased for it, or biased against it. There's a reason, most card games don't change the format of how getting cards works, because it works. And yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. My issue with the one card a week change to the meta is I don't mind how it impacts the game that much, but I don't like how it becomes a game of all right, I'm going to play the new card, or I'm going to go very hard on trying to counter it. It's that just doesn't do it for me that much. It's not the worst part about it, though. The worst part about it is the fact that it makes it hard to create new archetypes. I really think that's the main thing. If we think about it, Snap has had the same archetypes for a very long time. Occasionally you'll get something new, right? But yeah, so my favorite thing about card games is I like to brew. I like to try out new things and explore new archetypes, and that's what gets me excited. What really made me realize this, I mean, I've always known this, but what made me realize it more was when Pocket's release, or when Pocket's mini set came out with the new pack. I didn't really expect that much out of the new pack, because Pocket was really fun, but the launch meta of Pocket got solved pretty quickly, and I didn't really love how that meta played out. So I didn't play that much of it after the first 2 or 3 weeks. But it was fine, because Pocket is chill and just lets you log in and open packs if you don't feel like playing. But that's another topic. The thing is, I didn't expect a whole lot to come from the mini set with the new pack. I was like, well, some things will probably change, but I didn't expect it to be a huge impact. And it had a massive impact. I really didn't think a one-pack expansion would have such an impact on the game in terms of new things to try out and changing what decks were good and adjusting old decks, introducing new decks. It did a lot. And I had so much fun during that first week, because I think one of the cool things about card games is when they release a bunch of cards, even if you're someone like me who has enough time to put in a bunch of time testing and playing and all this stuff, nobody has enough time to jam every single idea in the first day, 2 days, 3 days, hell, even the first week a lot of the time. So it's super cool because everyone has to pick something that interests them. And so you get to see like a much more interesting metagame develop as people are trying all these different things. And even though you don't have time to try everything, it makes content more engaging to me. Because, like, I don't watch much Snap content. I watch no YouTube Snap content, like, at all. I like hanging out in streams because I like interacting with people. But I don't watch any Snap YouTube content. But when, like, when a bunch of new stuff comes out, I'd be way more interested in seeing, hey, what did other players end up, like, cooking up? Because I know we're not going to overlap on a lot of the same things. Whereas with the one card a week, I think a lot of the time there's a lot of overlap. So it's like, I think that's generally worse for like the content side of things, because you end up with like just a lot of repetitive content. And so people will watch like, you know, their favorite person or favorite 3 people or whatever, but I'm not going to go watch like 8 different people play the same anti-venom deck or whatever, right? So, I don't know, to me, I really love what bigger set releases do to the game, and I wouldn't be opposed to Snap keeping its once-a-week model if it could also introduce, like, very rarely doing, like, a bigger multi-card drop. Like, I think they could have their cake and eat it too, which, as we know, Second Dinner loves to do. But it is definitely a lot more work for them, and I don't think they see much of a payoff for that. The other thing, so, like, there's a 2-part to this, with the card acquisition stuff. Or not card acquisition. There's a second part to the release structure. And I think that Snap has overplayed their hand a bit when it comes to FOMO. So, fear of missing out, right? We all hate to love it or love to hate it, right? Second Dinner loves their FOMO. That's a huge reason why the Spotlight system exists as it does, right? Like, the whole reason they put a bunch of garbage in these weeks is because they want you to focus on the new card, because you know this new card is not coming back for 6 months. And so they can afford to put fucking Celine in the cache next to it, because they know they're not baiting you with Gooner Celine here. They're trying to get you to get the new card before you don't have a chance to get it for half a year. And it works. It's a very effective thing, right? That is a level of FOMO that generally works for them, although we have seen how that has a negative effect over time as people get frustrated with the acquisition system. But I think the real FOMO that's actually worse than like the Spotlight stuff is this right here. You're fucking the daily quest bullshit, man. I really, really dislike... Oh, I don't have any quests. I don't have any quests, so I can't show my quests, but I think the way they structure daily missions sucks. I've played a lot of card games, right? Played Magic, played a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! I played a bunch of Hearthstone, played a lot of Pokemon Pocket, obviously. Played a lot of card games. Every other card game that is not Marble Snap, it's much more chill about what it asks of you. Hearthstone and Magic Arena, they give you 3 days to stockpile quests. Now, if you want to earn more stuff, you do get rewarded for playing every day. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. That's totally fine to give people a little bit more if they want to be more engaged. But you don't really lose that much by not doing that. In Snap, if you miss out on your daily quests, it adds up very quickly. It adds up super fast because what they charge for their currencies when you convert it to dollar amounts is kind of expensive. So if you're trying to keep up on a budget or free to play, you have to log in and do your quests every day. And I'm not saying the quests are, a super tedious long thing to do. Most of the time they take 5 to 10 minutes or something. High Voltage, one of the great things about High Voltage is a lot of people like it because it lets them have a place to casually do their quests where they don't feel bad about losing. That's great. And that's like a huge reason why a lot of people like High Voltage from what I've heard. But the issue with the FOMO here is that you're not going to love the game all of the time, most likely. That's like every card game, right? There's always going to be some meta where you're like, I don't really fuck with this that much. Like, I'm not having as much fun as I was like a month ago or 6 months ago or however long ago. Normally, what you do in a card game when that happens is you take a break. You can take a little break from the card game. You can say, well, I'm not loving this blob meta, but it'll probably change in 2 weeks or a month or however long. And then people can come back then, and it's not a big deal. Now, you still miss out on stuff in other card games. Like if you fuck off for a month, you're not going to get all those rewards that you would have got if you played the game. But most of the other card games, some more than others, they're not prohibitively expensive about getting you back. Especially if you take a longer break. Hearthstone's gotten way better about this over time. I'm not sure about the other card games, but Hearthstone was the one I knew the best. It took them a while to do it too. Coincidentally, it was well after Broad left. But they have an on-ramp to bring you back to the game. Most other card games have rotation too, which I don't think Snap's ever going to do, and that's probably another topic for another time. But yeah, so like Snap doesn't have a great way to hop back onto the game when you do take a break. And so a lot of people, they feel like they can't take a break because they'll fall behind. And so that leads to people they keep playing the game when they're not having as much fun. And it leads to more frustration and burnout. And it creates a lot of like negative emotions. And even in the cases where it's not overtly like really negative, it's just like less fun. Like, I think I've been there for quite a bit this month where I don't really have much of a problem with the metagame at all. I'm pretty chill with most of it. I still hate Arsham, but I'm seeing less of it. Nothing else really bothers me super badly. I like most of the decks, or at the very least don't mind them. Like, it's fine. But I've played the shit out of like most of the archetypes that exist. I've played this game a lot. I stream it a lot. I play it a lot. And so it's normal to be like, all right, I would probably appreciate the game a bit more if I didn't play it for like a month or two or something. And the game really does not want you to do that. Everything about Snap is structured in a way to make you want to keep engaging daily and weekly. And I think that worked very well for it for the first year, maybe even a lot of the second year. But I think in combination with the acquisition issues, not many people are talking about this sense of burnout because it's just not like you didn't get this experience in other card games. And one of the big things that is bringing this to mind to me is Pokemon Pocket being a competitor in the genre, because Pokemon Pocket handles it about as good as you can. Not only is it very cheap to get all the cards, a lot of people have done it free to play even, but Pokemon Pocket, if you're not really having fun with the meta, like I wasn't having fun with the base set meta after 2 or 3 weeks, what did I do? I didn't play the game for, I don't know, how long was it? Like 2 months or something? Something like that. I took like a month and a half off of the game, but Pokemon Pocket requires so little of you, and enjoying packs or opening packs is enjoyable enough, getting those cool alt arts and stuff, that I didn't really care that I wasn't playing the game, because I wasn't falling behind at all. I was actually still filling out my collection, and I didn't have to do any chores or busy work to play the game when I didn't really feel like playing the game. And man, Snap isn't unique in this sense. A lot of live service games do it, and I think it's a fucking disease. I really, really hate what has happened with daily quests. But Snap very much is, I find, the most offensive about daily quests out of all the card games I've played. It's not particularly close. And it's just frustrating because it promotes what ends up being an unhealthy relationship with the game, and then it burns people out. And then so when those people do quit, like, it's usually a for good kind of thing. Or maybe they'll be like, all right, I'll quit and I'll try and come back later. And then I see them try and come back and they ask for advice, and it's like, there's not really much good advice to give unless the answer is just like open up your wallet and spend a bunch of money to try and catch up. But even then, it's very prohibitively expensive, because like if you missed a bunch of key cards, like physical card games, you have to spend on new sets. So it's the same thing. I don't really agree. Like I'm not adverse to, hey, I left for a while, I have to spend money to catch back up. Like, I'm fine with that. I would do that in other digital card games. It's not a big deal having to spend money to catch up. But the amount you have to spend in Snap for what you get feels so absurd to me. Mainly because the cards just don't return to the cache as often, so you have to use tokens, and tokens are very expensive if you're trying to get multiple cards. I guess I have to look at it the other way. If we go to the schedule, and we go to previous. Like, a great example was the, I think this month was a pretty good example. Gore, Fenris, Malekith, all really good cards. What was the season pass? Surtur was a good card. Like, or the Spider season. Anti-Venom, Toxin, Scorn, Scream. All these were great cards. And if you miss them and you come back and you're like, suddenly I'm interested in playing Discard with Scorn, or Scream Move, or Toxin Bounce, or Anti-Venom Affliction, it's not the biggest deal in the world if you have to pick up one of those cards. I'm not going to say it's super cheap or anything, but it's like, all right, well, whatever. But when it starts getting to like 2, 3, 4 cards, and you start looking at like what it costs to buy the tokens, since the tokens are the only way you're getting these cards. They return so infrequently that you get like, what, 2 times a year to try and get the card? That's ludicrous to me. It's crazy. And so like they want the spotlight to be the main way you get cards, but they don't return the cards nearly enough for that to work for people. So yeah, like, I just think that the one card release structure, with being combined with the acquisition system, it creates a more stale game than like other ways of doing it. And like I said before, they could even keep the one card a week for all the reasons that they like it. But I think the game would add so much more to it if they did have like, you know, a rare event where they released a bunch of cards at once. I really think that would breathe some fresh air into Snap that it hasn't had in a long time. Because you need to be able to create new archetypes, and I do not envy the people designing cards trying to figure out how to make new archetypes while printing one card at a time. I would lose my fucking mind if I had that as my job. Like, it's fucking annoying. Because, like, when you look at all the other card games, they print a new set, and the new set will have a new mechanic or a new archetype, and it allows them to have multiple cards that build on top of each other to create something new. Whereas Snap, a lot of the time you're building on top of, like, a pre-existing foundation rather than creating something new. They do very rarely do something new, like Arsham or High Evo, and sometimes like a new card can spawn a new archetype or breathe new life into an old archetype. Like Doom's a great example of that. Ajax was a great example of that. Doom decks existed, Affliction decks existed, but those cards completely changed how those archetypes feel and perform, and they really did feel like a new life brought to an archetype. A great example of this is this Lasher deck. Like, how long did it take for them to finally give us enough individual, like, hand buff cards to finally make a deck around it? It took fucking forever. Shaw came out a year ago, and he had such not great support that, I mean, some people played him in Surfer and he was fine, but, like, you couldn't really build around this card very effectively because the tools didn't exist. And so it took months and months and months, actually like a year later, but we finally got Gwenpool in the summer, and Galacta this season, and Scarlet Spider a few months ago, and it's slowly, like, finally got there, but it's like... And that's only if you have the cards, right? Like, if you're missing Gwenpool and Galacta and Scarlet Spider and stuff, you're still not very close to making a non-Surfer Shaw deck. It's probably not happening. And I just hate that. I hate that. It really takes away the thing I think brings me a lot of joy in card games. So I would love for them to try new things like that. I mean, you could make the argument they are doing more than they used to with these free cards, sure. But a lot of the free cards are so much weaker in power, they don't really have that much of an impact on the game. Like, they do a little bit, but, like, King Eitri wasn't, you know, spawning a new archetype around cards that didn't start in your deck. Or, Agony wasn't making Merge suddenly, like, a really interesting, archetype to build around. So, I think this is one of the more underrated issues that people see the card acquisition stuff and that is the most apparent thing to them. But as someone who hasn't had to deal with that to the same extent as the average player, like, I think if they did fix card acquisition, this would become a much clearer problem to people. But in order to realize this problem, you have to be able to play with all of the things, and you can't play with all of the things if the card acquisition's bad. So, I mean, you don't have to do that to realize the problem, but I think the problem becomes much more apparent when you have done that. That's why, I mean, they said it a long time ago, but they always wanted people to have something to chase, because I think they saw that when people run out of something to chase, they stop spending and stop engaging as much. And I totally get that, because people get, like, bored. So I think that's one of their incentives for keeping the card acquisition bad, is they want to keep the carrot on the string, so you're always chasing, like, a new way to play stuff. But eventually, when you have all the things, or most of the things, like, I'm missing 2 cards or whatever, Bruce Banner and Hulkling. I don't care. I'm not gonna play these cards. But, like, I've played all the archetypes. I've played more decks than I can count. It's great. It's fun. But eventually, you want, like, a new way to engage with the game. And I mean, they tried a little bit with Activate, but Activate didn't really make new archetypes. It just built upon existing ones. And that's the whole problem, is they're incentivized to build upon existing archetypes because they can only release one card a week. So unless you're making many Arshams or High Evos, you can't really make a deck in a box. And I think it's eventually gonna make people more bored of the game. So thanks for coming to my TED Talk about what I think is one of the bigger issues in Snap. I'm probably gonna cut this into a video, because I think it really isn't talked about enough, because rightfully so, most people are upset about the card acquisition, that is their laser focus. But I think there are more foundational flaws than just the card acquisition that will become very clear if they fix the card acquisition. But that's a big if, so we'll see. Let me catch up on chat, because I've been yapping. Perhaps the collector's vault should have unowned cards available in some way. That could be a way to do it. I mean, the fucked up thing is they have complete control over this system. If they wanted to make it less shitty tomorrow, they could. They could be like, all right, well, instead of taking 6 to 8 months or longer to bring a card back, we're going to do 3 to 4, which is still a long ass time, but cutting it in half would feel a lot better. And suddenly the spotlights wouldn't feel like complete dog shit, because people would actually get more than one card out of them again, which as time has gone on has happened less and less for people. We're seeing them do something like that though with they're offering a bunch of Series 5 card bundles, including a Anti-Venom bundle in February for gold. So they're trying to offer other ways of getting these cards, but it's just, I don't know, man. I think their Second Inner is very slow at implementing these type of things. And I think they estimated that it would take longer for this to become a problem. And then they got hit with a very perfect storm of, the game is now 2 years old. People are just a bit more bored with it because they've played so many of the archetypes over the past year or 2 years. So there's a general sense of boredom, and then to combat that boredom, people want to play with the new toys to do something different. But then the card acquisition gets in the way of that, and it's well, fuck, that's annoying. And so people are mad about that. And then right as that is coming to a peak, Pocket comes out and is hey, the gameplay might not be comparable, but our game is cheap as shit, and it provides a fast mobile card game that is kind of fun. Opening packs is fun, man. When I open a collector's reserve, I'm not having fun. I'm playing fucking Russian roulette with 5 things I actively do not want, and then credits or rarely a variant. But no, instead you get fucking titles and gold tickets, and it's bro, I can't remember the last time opening one of these was fun. So competition is great, because competition, I think, is speeding along the way this is developing. I think they wouldn't have felt nearly as much pressure if there wasn't competition in the genre. So even if you don't give a shit about Pokemon Pocket, I think it's worth appreciating that. Because I do not think they would have felt nearly as pushed into making changes as they do if there wasn't pressure